Man, we have seen some pretty rough price action recently coming from the Pi coin. So I wanted to kind of just put out a video talking a little bit about exactly this. Is this a bad thing? Is it over for Pi? Should we all be selling all this type of stuff? Or is this an opportunity to maybe DCA in? If you have Pi or you're super bullish on Pi, could this potentially be a better entry point than what you would have gotten 1, 2, 3 weeks ago? So we'll talk about that. But first off, I want to go and take a look at crypto bubbles just to kind of see where the market sits overall. We can see a very green day, which is unusual given from what we've seen over the past couple of weeks. We are even at a green week, which again, very surprising, not typically expected or seen too often over the past couple weeks. Month still very, very red. I mean, this is more what we're used to, a whole sea of red everywhere with very, very red at that. But what we can see kind of recently though is Pi has been one that is kind of been on the opposite of what we've seen out of the rest of the market. Obviously things up a decent chunk, Pi down a decent chunk, actually the worst of all the ones here in terms of red. If we do even look at the day, not the lowest, but still down 1.2% even just on the day. So obviously price performance recently has not been particularly great. Even if we look at, kind of what we've seen out of the past days and weeks, not really the best. And then if we do look at kind of what we're seeing out of market cap, all of that type of stuff, we can see, obviously we saw that peak. I think it actually hit just barely over $3. If we are to look at the candles, we can move this. Yeah, the high, I guess, was $2.99. So very, very close to hitting that $3 point, but not quite there yet. We can see basically since we saw that peak, obviously kind of initial sell-off directly after that TGE. And then we saw a pretty nice run up to that about $3 range. And then since then, it's almost been down only. We saw a little bit of a relief rally here kind of back in the beginning of March. But since then, again, kind of continuing to move to the downside. So what we've seen now is, we really haven't seen prices this low ever since we kind of saw this initial dump after the TGE, and then obviously saw price subsequently run pretty hard. But what we can see right now is we've got market cap of about 7.8 billion, fully diluted of about 12, and this puts us at number 21. If you remember, Pi, when we first started talking about it, was at about the 11 or 12 position, fallen very, very, very far since then. But so that kind of makes me kind of want to bring up the point and kind of beg the question of, well, where are we going from here? And I think what we need to think about is what is actually going on with the price, right? Has anything with Pi fundamentally changed? I would say probably not, right? I mean, we haven't really gotten any major news. Obviously, the macro environment is still the macro environment, and it's doing weird stuff to everybody in all crypto projects as a whole. But at least from what we've seen from Pi specifically, I think a lot of probably what we're seeing here, and this generally does happen when you have airdrops, TGEs, these types of token events, as you can see, if we'll actually bring this up into full screen, you've got the TGE. Usually there's a level of kind of, a major dump, and this also applies for airdrops as well, depending on the project, if it's a well-hyped project, if it's well-respected, all this type of stuff. Generally after that, you do see some level of run up once it's kind of found a floor and the buyers start to take hold. We see this, obviously, we got to the point where we thought it might be topping out at kind of this $1.50 to $2 range. Again, a little bit below what the TGE price was, but it does come back up, and kind of start to level out. And then we see another really strong pump all the way up to that about $3 mark. Right now, what we're seeing is just kind of the bullish steam has definitely been let out of the balloon. And so we're just starting to see it kind of bleed a little bit. We're waiting to the point, we'll go back here now, but we're waiting for the point at which we can start to see things get a little bit more stabilized. And if I pull this back out all the way, we need to see this get stabilized. Because again, we had this very bullish pressure here. Obviously, there's a ton of profit taking all the way up on this for people who are looking to secure profits. And now those people who are looking to secure profits may not have bought back in yet. And maybe they're looking for, maybe price to hit $1, maybe hit 50 cents. We don't actually know. The market really doesn't know, because obviously if people knew where the Pico bottom would be, everybody would try to get in at that point in time, and people wouldn't sell if they knew they were close to the bottom. So that's kind of what we're seeing right now from the Pi chart. Things looking okay. Now, what we do need to remember here, though, is, we do have the fully diluted valuation of 12 billion. So it is a very, very large project still, again, at the 21 spot. If we get up to 12, it's probably going to get up to about the probably 14 to 15 place with just kind of thinking about it off the top of my head. But I do think, there is the possibility with how strong of a community and how strong of the, chart and group, the people following Pi, all this type of stuff, it does have the potential that it could see a pretty decent run up. I mean, of course, we do have XRP sitting at the number 3 spot. Again, that's a multi-$100 billion market cap on a coin that is struggling to find kind of what its real utility is now that stablecoins exist, right? And so, I do think Pi, with it having a network that a bunch of people use, that's been fairly accessible and also done a pretty decent job of onboarding a lot of new people into crypto, there definitely is value here, right? And so, of course, the strength lies within the community. We'll have to see what the community does, how far they take it, because, of course, a lot of XRP success, at least in my opinion, has been almost purely based on the community. And if we do look at the chart, we can kind of see something similar, right? I mean, obviously, a continued sell down to the bottom here. We might have seen a bottom, as we are starting to maybe see a bit of a trend reversal. Hard to say exactly for sure what's going on here, but we can see, we do have a little bit of a trend line coming. We have not actually come back. If we were to kind of see this longer rolling trend line, probably something like this, we are a ways off from hitting this trend line and potentially breaking that. If we look at more of the short term, though, we do have a little bit more of a steeper trend line that's kind of sitting somewhere around this ish. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but that's probably about a close. And then again, this is going to be a trend line that we would potentially break a little bit sooner than this higher one. But that's ultimately what we're looking at. Obviously, if we look at RSI moving back to about neutral on the Pi chart. And then again, we have been way oversold in various points here. So again, potentially the worst of it is behind us. But we don't know for certain. You really never can know for certain. But if you are interested in trading, want to start building up a Pi position, maybe you're in Pi already, but you want to DCA, kind of bring that average cost down a little bit. Any of that type of stuff, if you are interested, I do have that link in the description below for BTCC. Again, a 10% bonus on first-time deposits. Really, really good deal. Again, extra trading bonuses of up to $10,055 per user, as well as no VPN or KYC necessary, if that is something that's important to you. So again, if you are interested, something just to think about. I also will say I do have a private community, also links for that in the description below. If you want to get signed up, go check out the Discord, all that type of stuff. I have a very, very small community there. Again, if you want to interact with me, ask questions that I may not normally cover or talk about too much, like on the channel, comments, any of that type of thing, I do have all of that there. You can check the link in the description below if you are interested. Usually it's a kind of a fun place to hang out, have some people to kind of chat with, bounce ideas off of. Obviously, you can interact with me directly as well. A lot of that type of stuff too. So now moving on, I want to talk about what we're seeing out of recent price, because I think what we're seeing out of recent price is people are starting to get a little bit scared, and people are starting to get scared because I think price is going a little bit lower than what people might have expected, particularly after such a triumphant run to the upside and such a successful TGE, at least in my opinion. I think that the TGE overall was very, very strong, but I think we need to kind of come back and remember what is actually valuable about Pi. Pi is, of course, valuable because of the network that it's building and the people that are on board the network. Now, again, you need to have value in this network. Part of how they are doing this is kind of using Pi as a transactional type of currency. Think about it as like a decentralized app store type of thing. Kind of an interesting idea, but again, of course, there has to be a lot of tech developments and tech improvements that allow for this type of thing to happen. So, but one of the things that we can see here is there's a country-specific breakdown of the Pi network, and then again, this is the estimated miners. So we don't know this for sure, but we can kind of get a decent sense here. We can see that India has between 7 and 15 million, Vietnam 5 and 10 million, Nigeria 3 to 7 million, Indonesia 3 to 6 million, United States 2 to 5 million, Philippines 2 to 4 million, and China 1 to 3 million. So obviously a ton of different miners throughout the world. What we can see here, kind of particularly between kind of the top 4, and then I guess we could include maybe the Philippines in here as well, is we're seeing a lot of the developing world that generally is going to be unbanked or have limited kind of cross-border payment options. There's a lot of banks and kind of in my opinion, kind of predatory third-party providers that can be helpful and stuff like that, but they do obviously take fees in there. If there is this network and this kind of ecosystem that allows some of this kind of more developing world to have access to some of these helpful apps and give people kind of a place to go, this obviously can be a very, very strong product market fit. And I think that's what we're seeing happening recently in crypto more generally, is that kind of the developing world is seeing a bunch of utility out of crypto, because a lot of what we see up in, maybe the United States or the West or whatever, kind of in some of the more developed world already, is we don't necessarily have too much of a need for crypto, at least yet, because we, particularly in the US, kind of the world is run off of the United States dollar. And so because of that, there's a level of like, get away with murder type of, with, our monetary policy and all this type of crazy stuff. We can kind of bully people. Again, I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm not saying I like it, but this is just kind of the reality. And so crypto isn't as necessarily useful, because a lot of these other countries, sometimes they deal with inflation, sometimes they deal with hyperinflation, sometimes they deal with, having, issues sending currencies to different places, a lot of this type of stuff, and that we don't really have to see or deal with in the US, just because we're the ones that kind of make the rules financially. Again, we can debate whether that's right or wrong all day long. I think we all probably can come to a somewhat similar answer on that. But ultimately what this boils down to is the fact that there are a bunch of users and a bunch of people who are really interested and dedicated with this type of product. Now, of course, seeing Pi hit $1,000, seeing Pi hit $500, a lot of this type of stuff I think is highly, highly, highly unlikely, just because there's technically no cap to Pi. Also, I guess the cap is 100 billion. And if we were to see, $500 at 100 billion market cap, that's like, what is that, 5 trillion or 50 trillion? I'm not sure which direction the zero goes, but that's a massive, massive market cap. Something that is very unlikely to happen on like a crypto company, right? I think that type of valuation could happen with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin isn't necessarily a crypto company. It's a commodity. It's a store of value. It's more akin to gold rather than like Apple or Nvidia or something like that. And so, I think that's also one thing that we're trying to figure out right now with crypto companies is how are they valued? And I think valuing a network like Pi seems to make more sense, valuing it more similar to like an Nvidia or an Apple rather than like a gold or a silver. And so, but overall, that all this to say that this is very, very valuable to have this kind of dedicated audience and this dedicated community that is built around Pi coin and the Pi token, all this type of stuff. So that's just one thing that I would say regarding kind of some of the price that we've seen recently. Of course, we have seen a bunch of profit taking, but ultimately the value is going to be in the strength of the community. If the community is strong, then the value of the coin will continue to hold up, at least in my opinion. So again, that's just kind of, some of my thoughts on the Pi coin, how it's been doing recently. Of course, nobody likes to see price going down, but you always need to remember when price is going up, it makes sense to take profits. If you're holding up, particularly for a lot of people who have been mining Pi since the beginning, they might be sitting on very, very sizable Pi bags. Get rid of some of it. Sell, price pumps 50%. Sell 10%, sell 20%, price 2x's, sell 30%, sell 40%, right? You can get in because things like this will happen. If we go back to the chart, we can see very, very down, basically over the past like month or so, things like this will happen. So when you see price go up like this and things start to go a little bit parabolic, start taking profits, because even if you want to hold more Pi, that's great. Sell it here and buy it here. That's generally the best way to kind of play trading of any type of asset, right? Commodities, stocks, crypto, whatever. That's usually the best way to do that. So if that is something that you are, kind of thinking about, just make sure, don't get too greedy. Just make sure that you're being responsible, you're being safe, and you're not making these crazy decisions that may not make sense, kind of in like a different market. So anyway, those are kind of my thoughts there. Hopefully you did find the information useful. If you did, a like and a subscribe really, really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, thoughts, anything like that, just drop those in the comment section below. And like I said, got the links in the description for both trading, if you are looking to kind of set up a new trading account, or as well as that private community, if you are looking to join my private community and just kind of hang out, chat, talk, ask me questions, anything like that. I'm there for all of it. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.